You are listening to a previously broadcast episode of Punk Rock Voltage.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the notorious MJH, and with us tonight we have the American Indian rock opera group Brulé, along with our co-host Dolly Miller-Brennan. And before we get started, I'd just like to say that Dolly, you did an awesome job with that interview. Was that Wednesday night with Gazelle Mead? Each of the three topics were informative, contained. It was just a really great interview. You did a great job. She did as well. And the reason I wanted to comment on this is because the next day when I went and I listened back to that broadcast, because when I listened back to it in the MP3 format, I can actually hear stuff that I didn't hear when the show was actually going on. Like if I'm talking, I might miss something somebody else says or something. And when I was going to edit that, I realized how incredible that broadcast was, because what we had a Muslim, a Christian, and a Jew, which sounds like the beginning of a bad joke or something. A Muslim, a Christian, and a Jew walk into a bar together. But no, it's just not like that at all. It was like, the three of us were on the phone doing an interview, addressing issues, understanding each other, respecting each other, getting along great. And if the three of us can do it, well, I just don't know why the rest of the world can't do it as well. And that's just food for thought, everybody. Now I'll turn things over to Dolly and let her get started with the interview with Brulé. If you'd like to be on the phone with Brulé, if you'd like to be live with Brulé yourself, we'll be taking calls about halfway through the show, and if possible after each topic we address. And I'll also be monitoring the chat room. If you have any questions you'd like to ask that way, we'll go ahead and fit them in for you. And now here's your co-host, Dolly Miller-Brennan.
Well, thank you, Mike. That was a beautiful introduction. And now you also were a very important part of that interview. And I also would now like to introduce you to Paula Roush, founder of the group Brulé, American Indian Rock Opera, AIRO, A-I-R-O. And Brulé is one of the top American Indian performance groups in the country. They sell well over 1 million CDs. They've got a long run at a world-class theater, RFD TV Theater in Branson, Missouri. And they produce a weekly TV show, Hidden Heritage, which is major. And the reviewers have commented that their show is as good as any Broadway production. And Paul has just the most amazing journey to his roots that brings tears to my eyes. So now I want to introduce you to Paula Roush.
Thank you very much, Dolly. I'm honored to be speaking with you and Mike. And I might just say that we mentioned Brulé, and there's actually 14 to 18 performers in our group. I'm just one of them, so I'm going to speak on behalf of our entire family and performance cast here this evening.
This is and I understand this is a family group, and this is such an important part of Native American culture that I don't know if non-Indians understand this. Family is such a strong part of this culture, and to see this group performing together and know that they're all related in an intimate concept. But then when I say family, the Native American culture is a family. Like, first time I saw Brulé was at the Milwaukee Summerfest powwow. My best friend was a Sioux, and we were sitting there, a Cherokee and a Sioux, and of course another Sioux on stage. It was just powerful. We felt a part of the family, and that's what Brulé does. They bring out that family in you. And now maybe Paul can tell us a little bit about how he journeyed to get to his roots.
Dolly, it's been a long journey. I mean, it really began. It began right at birth. I mean, I was one of the Native American children who was adopted at birth and removed from our country's reservation systems. And that was quite common back in those times. I'm not maybe the best entirely date myself here, but we're going back to some earlier times when the adoption process for Native American children was quite popular. So I was in that group of children that was removed from the reservations. As fate would have it, I wound up in the loving care of two very beautiful and wonderful parents, and I grew up as part of a small white middle-class farming community in southwest Minnesota. If there's a little twist in the story that started back in those early days, it's simply that I was never told of my Native American heritage. It was still taboo back in those times to openly proclaim that you had Native American heritage or descent in your family tree. It was just kept secret, and many times that information was swept under the rug. Well, so I grew up without that knowledge. I was told I was an adopted child. I was told I was French-Canadian. Both of those are true, but my parents just left out the bigger picture of being a Lakota, and so that's how I grew up in my early days. And of course, the story just evolves from there, Dolly. I've told it hundreds and thousands of times, but the real journey, I guess, for Brulé began in 1987 when I lost both of my adoptive parents in the same year. Very close period of time. And my wife, Kathy, while going through my parents' belongings, discovered an envelope. It had been hidden for years. The envelope contained some information about the adoption, and she was able to put the pieces of the puzzle together. It led her on a search. That search finally brought me back to a family that a biological brother and sister, aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews, and we were reunited with my Native American family out on the lower Brulé Sioux Indian Reservation in 1993.
That's absolutely. I find that a tremendous journey. I also have to credit your wife for saying, honey, whatever you want to do, you want to find your roots, we'll leave here, we'll leave this life, put it behind, and we'll go discover that and let you start off on a completely new journey in life. So when you say that, it really is a strong family unit.
Absolutely. I've credited Kathy over the years. She's had the intuition that's kept our compass on the mark. I think left to my own decisions, we would have missed the mark many times. But Kathy has had that intuition. It's what we call, I guess it's what the Lakota call the seventh direction. It's the internal direction. It's the guidance mechanism that lets you know if you're on track and if you're on the right mark. And she's always kept us on the right path. And I've listened to her closely over the years, and she's the real reason why we've been allowed to continue this journey.
Well, she's certainly, both of you, all of you are doing a wonderful job because you've sold over 1 million CDs worldwide. They're fantastic. I'm always buying them and giving them as gifts, and people will say, oh, my God, this is fantastic. And in 1999, you had the Outstanding Musical Achievement Award by the First Americans in the Arts. In 2002, you were the Group of the Year in Best Instrumental Recording at the NAMMYs. And it just goes on and on. 2003, Best Instrumental Recording for Night Tree by Nicole. And in 2006, Group of the Year again. 2007, another Group of the Year, Silent Star Night, which is a tearjerker for me when I listen to that. It makes me cry. 2007, The Hidden Story, the story of Paula Roush. It goes on. 2008, Group of the Year. 2009, Group of the Year. And this year, 2010, selected to be featured in the One Nation float at the 2011 Pasadena Tournament of Roses Parade. Those are amazing accomplishments.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a lot of work. It has been a humbling journey, Dolly. I will tell you that. And it sounds like we've been very busy, and that we have. But when you're on the road, it doesn't happen quite as fast. There's a lot of work, and I think our sales plateau that we've reached with our CDs It sounds wonderful, but I almost believe that each CD that we've issued out has gone with a handshake. And when you think about it that way, it's a lot of meeting people. It's a lot of small little individual performances and a lot of little small personal relationships. And that's really what's allowed us to build a strong foundation. And it's just the old way of doing things. And a lot of people these days just don't have that kind of patience. It requires a tremendous amount of patience and faith. And when you combine those two things, if you're on the right track again, if your compass is set right, you're in for a wonderful adventure in life.
I can certainly testify to the way you do meet people, because probably at your first performance after you started was when I had encountered your group at Summerfest. And I can recall buying CDs and saying, "Can we take some pictures?" And you said, "Sure." So we were taking pictures of my Sioux friend and my Montauk friend, and of course I'm the only mixed blood in the bunch, the Cherokee Jew, but we're all taking pictures. So I can attest that you really do that. And you also had appearances with Regis and Kathy Lee on CNN World Beat, A&E Photography. 2009, 13 episodes of the show Hidden Heritage, introduced those in the RFD network. 2010, 26 new episodes of Hidden Heritage are scheduled to air on RFD TV. That's fantastic. And in 2007, and I watched that DVD, over 13,000 people, they gathered at Mount Rushmore National Park to watch this. And it's not just it is the music, but Paul can explain to us about the dancing that goes on. That's just, it just brings tears to your eyes and adrenaline rushes.
Well, when we first returned back home, that first reunion was in 1993. And, that's when we first began to listen to the sounds, the music of Native America. And it wasn't long after that we had returned back home that we began to consider the possibility of taking the sounds of the American Indian, of Native America, however we want to put that, and blending them into the sounds of mainstream America, whether it be pop, rock, jazz, classical, country, blues. I mean, the genres just go on and on. But the idea was to bring Native America into mainstream America musically. We called it pioneering, one of the last musical frontiers, Dolly, because I think that it really we were probably the last, and maybe we are the last of the subcultures around the planet to really step forward and to give our traditional music an opportunity to have its place in a contemporary music format. Now, I say that, and it sounds easy, but it's a very delicate process. I mean, it always has been. And I think it's fair to say that we've been under the magnifying glass for quite a while just to make sure that we're doing this with respect. That's why it has taken as long as it has. But we certainly wanted to bring the dance of Native America up into that same mainstream entertainment market. So many people do not ever have the opportunity to come onto a reservation, or many never get a chance to really attend a powwow in person. So it became part of our mission as well to bring out the beauty of the culture in way of its dance and music. That's been part of our mission, bringing them out into the mainstream.
Your dancers are fantastic. They're fancy dancers and shawl dancers and jingle dancers. And the new thing that I see, anyways, new to me with the shawl dancers, it's getting almost onto the level of the fancy dancers with all the different colored shawls. So you really have brought that. The tradition is there, but you've brought the tradition out into the mainstream and blended it with the rest of the cultures. And that leads us into another thing that maybe you can tell us about, the reconciliation of cultures, your movement here in the reconciliation of cultures.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Dolly. I mean, that's really, I think, at the heart of where the journey has directed us to, and where we've concentrated the bulk of our efforts. When we first returned back home, it was a very simple process at first. I mean, we really just wanted to bring our two families together. When I say our two families, I'm referring to the extended family I had grown up with, off the reservation, and then the new family that I was reunited with, my biological family back on the reservation. Once we had been reunited, we wanted everybody to meet everybody, wanted to share everything. And we were a little naive back in those days, but that's what it really needed to begin this process. And we found ourselves at work early on, kind of working on basically kind of being an ambassador between the cultures, And I mean, we were not appointed as an ambassador. It's just a role that you began to assume. And once you did, you realized that it was kind of a wonderful and rewarding spot to be in. You know, to be able to work on you know, the healing process between two cultures that have been at odds with each other in earlier times. You know, through America's early growing pains, our cultures had their, you know, we had our differences. And that reconciliation process is still going on. It's really needed probably in these times and today more than ever. And so we became part of that process, and we embraced it wholeheartedly, and we continue to work on it musically, basically, wherever we go. And, you know, every time that we have a handshake, we mentioned that earlier, it gives us an opportunity to talk a little bit. It opens up a little dialogue, and I think that it allows the average American a chance to see and to become part of Native America and to help facilitate that healing process, which is still going on to this day.
I think it is still going on to this day. The healing process it definitely is. And what you're doing, the reconciliation of cultures, is bringing everybody together so we can all retain our own heritage and appreciate and understand the others. It's not a blending where we all become one and where we're all drones, but to blend each culture together so that we respect each other's cultures and let everybody retain their own traditions. I'm still waiting for when there's enough space, because my daddy was a big writer. I'm still waiting when there's enough space to see fancy dancers or somebody coming out here on horses. I'm still waiting for that, and I think that would be fantastic.
I do too. That's just it. Well, we live in a perfect time for that, Dolly, because the fact of the matter is 25 years ago, and that's just recent history, 25 years ago we wouldn't be having this conversation. At least it wouldn't have the same, we wouldn't be working on the same goals and objectives. It's just a different time. We for this process to be happening, I don't think that it really could have happened just this way any earlier or any later in history. And that's what really makes me think twice, too. There's a spiritual nature to this whole thing that we've been part of. The actual timing of all of these events, if a person dissects this thing, which I've done many times, and look at every little single step that it took for this reunion to happen and for this birth of Brulé, there's just too many what we'd call coincidences along the way. It's impossible. There has to be. I believe there had to have been a grand design to this from the beginning, and the trick, as always, for all of us, is to recognize that you've been pointed in that direction, and now can you follow that? Do you have the faith to take that leap to go places where most people just quite frankly wouldn't have the ability to do it? And we've gone down that road less traveled, and it has been a wild adventure, Dolly. I'll tell you that. It's been the adventure of a lifetime.
Well, I know when you mentioned the spiritual journey, there is a very definite sense of spirituality inside of your concerts. You can feel it. It's electric. It's in the air. And if you just sit back and allow yourself, you can become part of it and you can move with it. And I believe as you do, this is almost like a gathering, you know, where this is the time for it. It couldn't have happened before and it couldn't have happened later. This is the time for it. And that takes me into your music having such a spiritual quality in the composition of it. And I know you do a lot of the composing. And do you have other members in the troupe that also do the composing of the music? And how do you form that unique blend of rock and Indian, you know, American Indian music at the same time?
Well, I really would like to say for the record that, you know, I even though I have been involved with the writing process from the beginning, and now in these later years, the other family members, my son and daughter, have certainly become part of the writing process. But I've never claimed to be the sole creator of all these ideas. You know, they're a product of your life. They're a product of how you're living, and they're a product of your life's path. And once again, I guess one way to put it is that, you know, in the first half of my life, the life before the reunion on the reservation, you know, I was a struggling songwriter, and I say that, you know, that's putting it mildly. it was a difficult road, and all the best we could do was try to cover other material and songs by other bands and hope that you could do that halfway decent. And any attempt at original music was just a total disaster. So it's the inspiration. That's the spiritual part, and the spiritual part, at least in the world of arts, really what that is something comes to you, and it comes from another place. You have to really respect that, and you don't talk about it too much. I mean, I'm even talking about it a little bit differently this evening than I do normally, but it comes from a higher place. At the best, you're allowed to use it for a little bit of time. If you use it respectfully, it can do wonderful things. If you're careful with how you place it and how you're using it, you're allowed to use it. And it got a healing property, and it does some wonderful things. That music has come from that place. The music would never be there without the reunion and without us borrowing from these two worlds. And once it starts, it really is. It just flows. I mean, there's a lot to pull from. I've told my wife and many others that I don't think we'll ever run out of inspiration and material that you pull from providing for the balance of our lives. There's just too many things happening right now. It'll always be there, and the trick really is to get as much done as you can in whatever you have for the balance of your life.
Well, as you said, the spiritual quality is like a pulling of two worlds inside of your concert. And even if you're not at the concert, if you're just listening to the music on the CD, you can feel that, the two worlds, the spiritual world and the physical world combined. And I know your daughter, Nicole, is on the flute, and she is totally awesome. And you also have your son, Shane, on the guitar, and he's awesome. Do they also do some writing?
They do. You know, at first they weren't too involved, but they watched what was happening, and both of our children have really taken ownership in this journey and this path and the mission. And you know, it wasn't long into it that they began to really see what was happening. I think they realized that what we were doing did have an effect on a lot of people, and I think they realized that Kathy and I were trying to do this very respectfully, and they became part of the process because they lived every single step along the way with us. The kids were along on our very first journey to the reservation, so they experienced everything that Kathy and I did. They have a little bit of a different perspective because they're from a younger generation, but that's been the wonderful part of this, is that when you combine all that we're talking about and allow the younger generation to interpret that and to process it and allow it to come out in musical form, combined with someone like myself, a little older generation, it really takes your writing almost to another level even yet. It's really been wonderful to work with the kids and to be able to write and produce. I feel sometimes like the luckiest guy in the world.
Well, you know, with your children, also, that brings it into another area with your children. This was also a reestablishment of roots of which they weren't aware. So this was a major journey, had to be a major journey for them also.
You know, they shared in everything that we did along the way. Every apprehension, every wonderful event that happened, every up and down that we've had along this path, they were part of it. So and I think it was, I've had a lot of people ask, well, what was it like for the kids to drop I mean, we were living in a pretty nice suburb of Minneapolis at the time that the phone call came in, and the phone call is, I always refer to that as kind of the beginning of the whole thing. When I first talked to my brother for the very first time, and his closing words at that conversation were, "Come on home." He just said, "Come on home." And here's where all of us living in a suburb of Minneapolis, our kids in a wonderful school district there, and one of the largest in Minnesota, and just to kind of drop everything, pack it up, and head to this small little Indian reservation in South Dakota, and really look at it as an adventure. And I'll tell you what, after that first reunion, a year later, we had all moved, all of us. We'd all moved out. We dropped everything, left it behind, and we moved to the reservation. That was our new home. So for the kids to do that, it was a huge step. So they've taken as big of a leap of faith in this, and probably bigger, as Kathy, from anything that Kathy and I have. But I think they realized, too, it was the best thing that ever happened to them.
Well, I noticed that you have, and his name is Lowry, one of their dancers, is Navajo. The Diné Nation has to be Navajo, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
That's
so
correct.
I noticed he's part of the Diné Nation, and I know All right, so we have a Navajo in here with us, Sue. Now, does he incorporate some of his Navajo traditional dance into this group?
Absolutely, Dolly. I mean, that's another thing that we've tried to do. I mentioned earlier at the start of our conversation that at this time there's actually 16 performers in our show right now, and we've never been restrictive. I mean, what I mean by that is it's been an intertribal process as well. We've never once wanted to limit this to just Lakota or Sioux involvement, even though that's what our family basically is here. We've had dancers and performers from many different tribal affiliations across the country. Now, there are over 550 recognized tribes, so we'll never cover every tribal affiliation, but the door's been open from the very beginning to as many intertribal cross platforms as we can come up with, and that's been part of what we've tried to do as well. One of the things I noticed early on was that we don't have a central, Native America or the American Indian doesn't have a central. There's no central place where all the tribes come together. We're still separate tribal communities, and so in a strange way, we've tried to have Brulé be a project musically and theatrically that could include and embrace every tribe at the same time. And I think that that's really happening. The culmination of that, if I can just sneak this in, is that when we go to the Tournament of Roses parade here on New Year's Day coming up here, we've had this wonderful opportunity to not only to be part of this Native American themed float, but we've invited members from every single tribe across the country to be part of this and to be walking alongside this. And we hope it's a gesture of unity when this happens across the tribes, and we hope that gesture of unity, and from the tribes across Native America, goes out into the world and can be some sort of demonstration of unity out there amongst cultures across the planet.
Well, this is going to be broadcast on ABC, Hallmark, HGTV, KTLA, NBC, RFD-TV, and Univision, and it's going to be broadcast to more than 200 international territories and countries. And I think it is Brulé, the combination of all this, that has brought this reconciliation of cultures, that has brought everyone together. And again, it is a spiritual unity, because before your group came out, this didn't exist.
Well, it had in smaller forms. I think there had been attempts in earlier times of American Indian history to try to unify in some sort of a way. But this reconciliation process, I keep coming back to that word, Dolly. I think it's the key thing. I think that this is the in a moment of clarity, I think that we realized that was the mission, and it's a global mission. Now, we're just a small little group when it comes down to it. How much can a small group of 14 people or a family of 4 really do? Well, I've come to find out that it's when it networks out, it's bigger than anybody can possibly ever imagine. And so all of us, just as individuals, we shake somebody's hand and make an impression. That can go out to hundreds of people over a short period of time. So what do you think happens when we can reach a large mass audience like that? We're just thrilled to be part of it. We're trying to be humble and be respectful at every single step, because as you start to endeavor on a project on a bigger scale, you just have to watch every little thing along the way. But the message is clear, and we just hope that it has some sort of impact around the world. The funny thing is sometimes you can't gauge that, and you can't even gauge it during the course of your lifetime, but it can be measured over years. We hope it's a positive. We hope it's a positive effect.
I think that what people need to know is just exactly what you touched on, and you really had the right word. The American Indian experience is one of humility, and it is a humble experience to be part of the overall part of creation. And when you bring that out into the forefront, and everybody assumed this kind of a role, then you can come together and respect everyone. And I think that's the word, the humble appreciation of where we're at the time. And as you said, the Rose Parade is going to be themed Building Dreams, Friendships, and Memories. And that's going to be Saturday, January 1st, 2011 at 8 o'clock a.m. PST, so that's Pacific Standard Time. And this is one of the few Native American floats in history in the Rose Parade, one of the very few that they've had.
Dolly, I really think I need to just mention, too, that this all, took another individual's vision to make it, as it always works in life that way. We've gone for many years. It's been 17 years since we've started, since that first reunion. 17 years have passed, and for the most part, during that period of time, we worked very hard and diligently. But the fact is that from the outside world, the entertainment industry, I think they always looked at us, a little bit as curiosities. Certainly, the music business never really quite knew to this day what to do with us. There still is not a genre for contemporary Native American music. It's all lumped together, and it's kind of confusing. Booking agents, managers, the bigger entertainment industry never really quite knew what to do with this. We knocked on a lot of doors, and almost in every case, the doors were closed or open just to crack to kind of peek in. But not until recently. And what I'm getting at here is when we met the president and founder of RFD TV, which is an independent cable network for those folks who maybe never heard of it. And I hadn't really either. A year and a half ago, I'd never really heard of RFD TV. It is a cable network that has a large following. They're connected to over 50 million homes. And the founder and president is a gentleman by the name of Patrick Gotch. He's from Omaha, Nebraska. And it just so happened that part of his mission with his network was to give the American Indian a voice out there in the mainstream where it hadn't existed before. And it really occurred to me about a year after we first met, I go, my gosh, here we'd been pounding on the doors of the entertainment and music industry all these years, and finally I could have never predicted that a small cable TV network would finally be the entity that would allow you to continue to move forward and take a step or two up to a different level in the world of entertainment. So we owe a lot to RFD TV and Patrick Gotch for being allowed to take stories of Native America and present them to a market that we could have never possibly reached, even with our wildest expectations in the world of music. So, it's been unbelievable.
Well, when you mentioned, again, this reconciliation of cultures, which to me is very important, it's almost like a peaceful application of Tecumseh. Tecumseh also, out of Kentucky, wanted to bring all tribes together. Of course, his was an unsuccessful venture because they were all killed in battle. But he wanted to bring all tribes together. And this is what you're doing in a peaceful way. So it has to happen at this time.
It does. I've got to share one quick little story with you, Dolly. When it was Christmas Eve. It was our second visit to the reservation in 1993, and I was standing in my brother's living room up on the reservation. He was showing me pictures of new family on the wall. And I was still learning names and learning who was who. And we come to a picture of a noble-looking. I just would describe him as a chief. If anybody were to look at it, you'd say, "Well, it looks like an old Indian chief there." And I asked my brother, I said, "Now, who is that?" And he goes, "Well, that would be your great-great-great-grandfather. We're related to him, and his name was Strikes the Ree, or Struck by the Ree. And his friends called him Old Strike." You'll find his name in all the history books if anybody was to look. He was born in 1802, and that was a time when Lewis and Clark were coming up the Missouri River on their expeditions. They stopped at a little town called Yankton, South Dakota. They stayed there for a weekend. They heard of the birth of this young Native American boy, and it was this young Strikes the Ree. And they asked if they could see him. They wrapped the baby in the American flag, baptized him, and made him the first Yankton Sioux citizen of the United States of America, and predicted that he would go on to do great things with his life. And he did just that, Dolly. But the balance of his life was spent on peaceful relations between our cultures. And the 1800s were a time of great trial and tribulation for the Lakota and Sioux people, along with other tribes in the northern plains. But he stood firm and fast on working for peaceful resolutions, and he made many trips to Washington, D.C. And it was then at that moment that my brother told me that story in the living room that it became crystal clear that that was going to be my mission too, that the torch had been passed. And that I was the perfect candidate because I was a product of two worlds and a son of two mothers and two fathers, and I was in the perfect position to carry on that work on the peaceful front of reconciliation.
I would say you definitely are the person for it because, again, as your great-great-great-grandfather would have been, this was a humble birth, and this is a theme in American Indian culture is to be humble, and that's why you're given these gifts. As you said, you have to use them wisely. My grandmother was born, my paternal grandmother on the Cherokee side of the family, she was born in a tent on a camp along the Chattahoochee River as they were traveling to go back to North Carolina. So you find a lot of them born in very humble surroundings, and your ancestor definitely would have been that.
Well, humility is one of the virtues. It's one of the virtues of the culture, and I think that is something that, and there are probably 7 or 8 important virtues that Native America has that I think that the world really needs in this day and age.
We would love to hear those from you. What those are.
Well, I'm going to just mention a few of them here because the important ones. I mean, honesty, bravery, humility. These are things, and I think we all know that Native America was the original stewards of the land, and so they have an eye towards nature that we still have got to pay some attention to in today's world. And bravery, I mean, these are things that, might seem kind of trite, but they're still very important, and we live by those virtues. You realize that you're going back to a simpler way, but the world has gotten so fast and furious, and we just forget about the basic. We forget about the simple, and we forget about those things. And I think that's what Native America still has to offer to the world. It's the basics. It's the basics, and of course, humility is one of them. Every human being should have that as part of their daily life.
And that brings me into another issue with you. One of your songs, "Star People." This is one of my very favorite ones. If you just tell us a little about Star People.
Well, our Native America and particularly the Sioux and the Lakota, you might hear me refer to Lakota and Sioux, but they're both the same thing, Dolly. I mean,
right.
The Lakota is an inclusive term for the Sioux people, but we have
Oglala.
Oglala and Rosebud and Brulé. These are bands of the Lakota, and that's where actually Brulé comes. We're one of the 7 groups that make up the entire Lakota nation. But our culture is full of legend and story and traditions, and of course one of them that I heard early on was of our origins. And without getting too deep into this, there's many legends about the origins of the Lakota people and the indigenous people of the northern continent in general, that we may have had our origins from somewhere else out in the universe at one time. And you find that it's a kind of a common story that you can interpret a number of different ways. But Star People was intended to be an exploration of that story and how that can be applied to anyone in a number of ways, whether we want to look at it religiously or if we want to look at it scientifically or whatever the case might be. I did a brief study on it, which is fascinating. But we turned that into a little musical project that we call Star People.
I found that's one of the things that really drew me to stay, appreciating your group, was because the Cherokees have a similar tradition that we came from stars from the Pleiades. And I always found it amazing when I look back, when I was about 13, once we went up to North Carolina and Daddy was sitting around with some elders talking and they were telling this story. And I found it amazing that this story existed so long before anyone ever knew there was this 7-star system. So,
absolutely.
So the Star People really drew me to this group. And it's a very spiritual song, but as are many of them. And the dancers. I mean, some of the dances you have, I noticed one where there seems to be not a fight, but something similar in one of your dances. If you would tell us a little about what some of the dances mean.
Oh, yeah. Well, the dance you're referring to is called the Spear and Shield Dance. And it was, it was a time for the dancers and community members in earlier times during social events to reenact certain battle scenes or certain things that had happened out, whether it was a hunt or whether it was in battle. But the Spear and Shield is a dance where the 2 dancers have each got obviously got a spear and a shield, and they're exchanging light blows back and forth as they confront each other, as they run towards each other, and they'll go back and forth at this a number of times, and they're trying to decide, who is going to prevail over that confrontation. And in the simple dance form, it's very entertaining to watch. It's beautiful, really. And not every battle, of course, was ended in somebody being killed, because we had a thing called counting coup that I think is really kind of neat just to think about it, that it even happened like this at one point in history. But many times in earlier days, if a young warrior could sneak up on the enemy and simply touch him, he had won the battle. There was no need to kill that enemy, because he had already stood there, could have taken his life and did not, and there was a greater honor in not taking that life when he could, and his enemy could do nothing about it. That was called counting coup, and so that's also demonstrated in that spear and shield dance.
Well, the dances are fantastic. What is your schedule coming up now? I mean, where are you going to be?
Well, we're just finishing up this run at the RFD TV Theater, and I think when we finish our Christmas stretch here, we'll have logged in about 150 some shows in a row, and we'll take a little short break, and we've got one holiday show in Colorado Springs that we're going to leave the theater for, another in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We have just a brief little break after the first of the year in January, and then we start this whole thing all over again. We've got some dates out on the road between February, March, and April, and our website could be checked for those dates, and that's just brulrecords.com, BRULE records, RECORDS.com. And then we come back to RFD TV Theater again next spring and start this whole thing all over and start year 2 up.
And everybody can just click into this website, and they can pick up CDs and DVDs. The DVD that you have, we've got a little trailer of it on YouTube. The DVD that you have out about in the hills. This is fantastic.
Well, our Concert for Reconciliation at Mount Rushmore was a bold statement. It was the largest project that we've probably ever undertaken, and to this day remains probably the single event that's had the biggest impact. But we wanted to pick a place of grandeur, and we wanted to pick a place that had significance if we were to go there and say we want to be here in the name of peace and reconciliation amongst our cultures. So Mount Rushmore, I had many people say, well, why didn't you go to like Crazy Horse Mountain or go to some other place because it wouldn't have been the same. I think by going to Mount Rushmore, and by the way, Mount Rushmore's always been the staff and everybody there. Gerard Baker, who's the park superintendent, have always been kind to us and allowed us to perform there whenever we wanted to. But that's a place where you can make a statement. The amphitheater is right at the base of the hill, at the base of the 4 presidents. And I think, and of course those 4 presidents were carved out in the Black Hills of South Dakota, still sacred and holy land for the Lakota. So there's a controversy there from the very beginning. But to go to that location and say we come here under peaceful conditions, and we want to put this concert on, and we want to do it in the name of reconciliation and offer our forgiveness from our side. It was a bold statement, and once again it was under the watchful eye of many many tribal communities. But I think the result, here 3 years later, is that it was a worthy project, and I hope it stands the test of time. And the concert really was picked up by PBS. We didn't even know that was going to happen, and it had a whole second life of its own. It went through the entire national PBS circuit, and it's been over now in many foreign countries, and I'm just proud to be part of it.
Well, I noticed at Branson, because a lot of people go to Branson, Missouri every day. I mean, there is a performance. This is a tough schedule for as large a troupe as you have every day to the 23rd of October. So if anyone is planning on going to Branson and wants to see you, there's a performance almost every day through the 23rd of October. This is a tough schedule to maintain.
Well, it's taken everything we've had, but I think that our training allowed us to do this. You know, I've been performing since I was 16 years old, and that's going back a ways. I'll just put it that way. and even for the rest of the cast and crew, you have to have a discipline that is different than even just a heavy touring schedule of 100 dates on the road. There's a lot of dates, but 200 in a theater every day is a whole other thing. But it's good for us. It's been great, and best of all, it's great to be here in Branson because this is probably the most unlikely place that you'd find a Native American group, but it's the perfect place once again to come to be able to bring our culture out into the world in a way that we couldn't do it anywhere else. And Branson is a really entertainment city. It's packed full of people coming to want to see shows every day. There's actually 45. I think there's 47 some theaters here in this town, Dolly. So, yeah, you better have a pretty good show too if you're going to come to this town because there's a lot of competition here.
And that says a lot about your group. You've got to have a pretty good show. And every day through the 23rd of October, this is a long run. And if people want to go on your website, again, brulerecords.com, you can go in there to a mail order form, and you can pick up DVDs and CDs. You can get a DVD, I think, of the performance that you just did. You can get a DVD of that. I don't know if there are other DVDs, but I know you can get that one.
Yeah.
In that.
Everything we have, you can just if somebody wanted to just get a quick update on us, everything we have is there, and there's photographs, there's videos, clips, and it'll connect you out to other links that I think you can get a total picture of what's happened over the past 17 years by checking that site out. So if anybody would like to, that's the perfect place to get a quick dose of Brulé and what we've been up to here for the past 17 years.
And I think Mount Rushmore was fantastic. And also you can be contacted through that if someone would want to book an engagement somewhere.
Yes, absolutely. Kathy is still my wife. She manages everything that we do and does a wonderful job. She keeps close tabs on everything, and she'd be the one to talk to about any inquiries or information about upcoming schedules. But next year should be a pretty fun year. The television show, Dolly, has been fascinating, too. By working on the show that we call Hidden Heritage, it's allowed us to bring out positive stories from across Native America. And I don't think that's existed before. Many of the documentaries that we watch on public television or wherever it might be tend to deal, and I think it's needed, but they tend to deal with difficult issues, whether it be poverty or reservation life or past tribal differences and what I call historical trauma, because our people still deal with that. But very seldom do you find uplifting and positive stories coming out of Native America. I mean, here's the thing: they're there, they're everywhere, but we haven't had a format or medium to bring them out into the world, and so we've just been honored to be part of being able to bring these stories out. So once we started doing the production for the show, we just realized that there's going to be more stories. We'll never get to the stories that we see out there in the balance of our life. The best we can do is try to grab ones that are significant and have meaning and can have an influence on the outside world. It's been fascinating. It's a lot of work. Television. I thought it was a lot of work putting a CD together, but producing a 26-minute TV show is a whole different. And once you start doing it every week, once that season hits, it's quite a workload. I mean, you kind of have all faculties working. I'll tell you that. My son has played a very important role in producing that TV show.
Well, this is it, our children's generation. They really, they're geared in this direction. But again, it's hidden heritage. What that does is bring all tribes and the positive stories out of every tribe, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We've opened it up to every walk of tribal community that we can possibly get to. And so we just hope it's a platform. And once it's started, I think it'll have a life of its own. And at some point, maybe we might find some other young producers from our culture that step in and take this program over and just continue it on for years down the road.
Because, as you said, there are over 500 tribes, all coming together, all having something positive to contribute. And it has been a difficult transition for all American Indians, I think, in any tribe to come out of your own more or less exclusive little world to come out into a more inclusive world, to where you're reaching out to everyone. And it hasn't always been easy for anyone.
Absolutely not. That's a whole other discussion. But in our journey, what we found by being immersed back into the culture, kind of at the midpoint of life, it didn't take us long to realize that many of the problems within Native America, and there are many, Dolly. We could go on forever, but just to summarize it. It's what I refer to, and a good friend of mine, Bill Miller, is the one who told me this phrase, but boy, was he ever accurate. He called it cultural trauma. And even though that was initiated in times of the past, it's still present today. It's almost as if it's handed along genetically. And it's hard to overcome. I mean, it's passed from parent to child, and it goes on, and it creates a downward spiral. And the reservation systems have their trials and tribulations right now. And I've had people ask me if I ever have come across a quick fix for the reservation policy, and I don't. I mean, I get lost in it. I wish I did. It's a perplexing, difficult thing that our country really should face and address and work on, but it tends to go unnoticed. And that part of the journey has been a little bit disturbing and kind of sad. But once again, I can't totally dwell on that. We won't make any strides forward if we get lost and going backwards here.
No, and this is the whole part of Brulé, to go forward and to bring those ideas out. And music is an international language. You don't have to know the language. You don't have to understand anything about it. You don't have to be American Indian. You can be any culture you want to. But that music, the world of the arts, it's non-political, and the music is non-political, and it absolutely brings everyone together. And this is a reconciliation of culture, because it brings the peace and the harmony when you listen to the music. And everyday life isn't always peaceful and harmonious, but you can still take that time and tune into this.
Absolutely. I think that's been part of what we've realized that our mission is too, is that, music does bring peace and tranquility and comfort to certain individuals in different ways and at different times. And I've had more people, approach us over the years and just say that, well, we just appreciated this particular song or this particular recording project. And I put it on at the end of the day, and it seems to have an effect on providing a tranquility that we just can't find in the world anywhere else. So, that's a wonderful thing to hear. As an artist, it's the ultimate compliment. But it's not just the artist; it's the medium. Music does have that ability to. It does have some healing qualities to it, and it is universal. The first time I watched the movie Close Encounters of the Third Time, it really kind of did something to me, because of that. It was then that I realized that music is so universal that not only is it a common translation here on this planet, but I'm certain that if we were ever able to collaborate on a larger scale in the universe, we would have common denominators as well.
As well as the dance. I think the dance that you have inside of your performance, I was always struck by that. The dance is a common denominator. You don't have to understand the language. You don't have to be of that tribe, that culture. You can be anything you want, but you can understand the dance. And as you said, when in a confrontation, one didn't have to totally kill the opponent in order to be victorious. So they both came out victorious. One kept their life, and one had the honor of not taking it. And in the dance, that's also seems to be such an important part of your group.
Well, that's the beauty of having a tradition to your culture, and because you carry on those old concepts. You can demonstrate old virtues that are still practical today, and you can do it in an art form that's entertaining. I mean, it's really, I can't tell you how many times I've just stopped to think about how fortunate that we've been to be able to be part of this, and to be able to, all these performance dates, they don't seem like a lot of work, because we've enjoyed it. Every day is a new day. We jump out of bed in the morning. We can't wait to get for the next show to start, and life's kind of like that once you're on that journey. It's just hard to find that journey.
Well, on the Hidden Heritage now, where can people watch that?
Okay, well, it's on, RFD TV is an independent cable network, so everybody would have to kind of look on their cable lineups to see if they have it or not. But it's carried by all the major cable providers, Dish Network, DirecTV, Mediacom, Charter, Suddenlink, Comcast, Verizon, Time Warner, Cox, all these cable providers do carry RFD TV, and it has been one of the higher channels. You might find it sometimes above channel 100, but if you look and see it. And we actually had it and didn't even know it.
It's 155 on my lineup. It's number 155 on mine.
Yeah, and so it's out there, and it's out there. If people want to check it out, and our program airs on Monday evenings, 8:30 Central Time, and then it repeats Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning, and then our seasons consist of 26 episodes, and then that repeats, and then you jump into another 26 as you extend and go on into your next season. So we're just beginning season number 3 here in a few weeks, and so once that thing hits, you're cranking out 26 shows in a row week after week, and we put a new show on every Monday night, and we do have a compilation of some of the past shows that people are interested in that too. It's just coming out on DVD right now.
Well, I've known Mike long enough to know that if he's not saying anything, he's really listening and learning and enjoying. Mike, what do you think?
Yes, you guys are doing a fantastic job. I didn't want to interrupt. You mentioned a couple of things there, Paul, that just really had me interested. I made some notes so I wouldn't forget. We have like 4 minutes left in the live broadcast, and after that it kind of continues on to the podcast, so we can continue talking and everything. But if there's anything like for the live listeners right now, just to go back over your website, BruléRecords.com, and that what is that on January 1st, 2011? The Parade of Floats.
The Rose
Parade.
Tournament of Roses.
Tournament of Roses. That's why I couldn't find it. I think it's the third or fourth largest watched event in the world of television. So it's a pretty big deal. It comes from Pasadena, California every year, and Tournament of Roses Parade, and it's broadcast. I don't know what day that is, to be honest with you guys, but it's broadcast
January 1st.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. I'm not that sharp on my calendar here right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and then along with the parade, the television show is RFD TV, which they can check out that website too, Mike. If anybody wants to just go to rfdtv.com and look at the entire lineup of what's happening there, it's a pretty fascinating network. By the way, just a quick explanation of RFD. That stands for Rural Free Delivery. So as you can imagine, the network is all based around rural America, and that was why we were able to be embraced. Yeah, that's the meaning for that. And of course, RFD TV has the theater in Branson, Missouri. That's how we connected up and got started down here with this long theater run. So everything's kind of connected together, so to speak.
And January 1st on a Saturday. I just pulled up the calendar.
Yeah, it is.
And that's on a Saturday, and we hope that everybody does watch that. And if you get a chance, excuse me, I have allergies. If you get a chance to go to Branson, you can catch a show between now and the 23rd of October. You're going to be able to catch a show if you're in Branson.
Yeah, we're actually there, Dolly. So actually, we're here through December 5th. Actually.
Oh my goodness! I just pulled up to the 23rd. We go past that, and our Christmas. I guess I can call. Yeah, I'm going to call it a Christmas show. That's fair enough to say that. We produced a show years ago called Red Nativity, and they did during Christmas. That Christmas show got to be on.
You are listening to the MJH Experience on Blog Talk Radio.
Okay, you guys keep talking. That was just the
now we're back. Now this will go out, Mike, on a podcast, and Mike will put this link out, and everybody then can listen to it. And I always tweet it on Twitter, and I know Mike does too. And when he tweets something, I always retweet it. So we get it out there on Twitter and on Facebook.
My biggest Twitter fan. Twitter fan. Follower. That's what we call him on Twitter.
If I see him, I just
follower, Dolly.
Retweet it. So the people have a chance to look at this, have a chance to listen to it. So it'll be all over. It'll be all over Facebook. So anywhere anybody wants to listen to this, they can listen to it.
Sure. Well, I sure appreciate it, Mike and Dolly. You guys have done a wonderful job, and thank you for allowing us this little forum to talk about this. It's a wonderful conversation. Of course, we talk primarily on some of the more positive things. I can tell you also that we've had our struggles along the way, and any time that you're in a position where people perceive you to be successful, there are many difficulties that come with that, not only outside the culture, but from within the culture too. So we've had to always balance the fun stuff and the positive side with the reality in terms of there's a business to this, very definitely.
Oh, there very definitely is a business to it.
Yeah.
And
I was watching a movie one time, and they said that the reason that the Indian rain dance works is because the Indians don't stop dancing until it rains.
That's about it. Yeah. It's persistence.
We used to go to those in North Carolina, and we called it, at the time, it was a Great Green Corn Festival. I think now it's just called a powwow, but I can remember as a child it was a Great Green Corn Festival.
Yeah, that was that kind of turning point, Dolly. I mean, they are referred to mostly powwows nowadays, but they did start out here maybe 30 years ago just being traditional tribal events. And they had a bit more of authenticity to them back at that time. But, I'm glad the powwow circuit is as healthy as it is. It's probably the healthiest entertainment forum that Native America has. And it encourages young kids to participate. And, of course, it's all based around winning money. So if there wasn't money there, nobody'd be going to the powwows. I always think that's a little humorous. But these days, the bigger the prize package, the bigger the crowd you're going to see there, because there's more dancers.
Well, what I always did when I would produce events, I would bring in different groups like this. And, of course, when I'm around here, I brought in this, like you say, all tribes, the 7-generation dancers. This is a Menominee tribe. I mean, my God, they're fantastic, and the Duck Creek, the Duck Creek drummers, and doing the vocals. So you can bring all of these tribes together. Like you say, the reconciliation of cultures, bring them all together. And it is turning into a major American entertainment form.
It is. I'm so excited that it is that you put it that way. That's why we've been so proud to be part of this too. Just from the entertainment standpoint, because I think it really has. I think Native America has been one of the last. I don't know if we are the last, but we're certainly one of the last of the small cultures to emerge out into the mainstream and to bring our art form out there and to bring our traditional stories and dances and allow them to be put on display in a contemporary format. But it's important to do that. I'll run across critics that many times will say, well, we don't think that you should be blending it, and then you're kind of destroying the traditions by doing this. But they're really kind of few, and I always listen to them, and I take it to heart. But, when you see the young kids watch what's happening, you realize that we have to provide some sort of a new contemporary version of our culture's dance and music. Otherwise, the kids are just not going to pick up on it. One of our biggest problems right now is that most of the kids on the reservations, they want to be rappers. They want to be country. They want to be country singers. They want to be rock. They don't want to be Native American musicians or entertainers. And that's cool. And nothing wrong with that. But wouldn't it be kind of neat if we could say, hey, go start up your own Native American group, and it doesn't have to be traditional powwow music. So
no, it doesn't
that doesn't exist.
It doesn't have to be.
We're kind of forging that out.
You can bring in your traditions and change it a little bit, and you find these in major powwows, like in Summerfest, because they do bring this out. Indian Summer, rather.
Indian Summer's been at the forefront, I think, of having a large concert format venue where we can present new and old, and the whole thing is all based around the American Indian culture. I wish there were more events like Indian Summer. Probably it's unique. It's probably the biggest and best of the Native American festivals around the country. So my hat's off to them. I wish there was about 10 more of them.
Oh, they do, and they bring in tribes from everywhere, and it's just it's a wonderful event to go to. If anybody ever has an opportunity to be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the first Saturday weekend after Labor Day, you need to try and go to Indian Summer, or even check your local areas, like you said, for local powwows. I remember one of the first ones I produced, and my boss was just freaking out. He said, "Oh my God!" He said, "I grew up in the Dells," and he said it would cost me $20 to have my picture taken with this group. And the people were just, my God, they never saw anything like it. Well, that's because you didn't have a Cherokee Jew working for you before, and now you do. And you're going to see this. And again, that's another blending of cultures. And each culture has so much to bring to the other one if you allow each one to retain their own identity and respect that. Sometimes I feel so blessed with my ethnicity.
Absolutely. And I tell you something, Dolly. We meet people every night in our signing line, or every time that we perform in our signing line, we'll run into people that say, I've got a little bit of this or that, whatever it might be. it's generally Cherokee because that's the biggest tribe in the country. But and we just wish that we.
So much.
That's right, and they'll say we wish that we knew more about it, but they don't. But the thing is that they're excited about it and they're proud about it, and they're investigating it, and they're in many cases reconnecting back up with that part of their genealogy. But we couldn't have done it 40 years ago or 30 years ago. It wouldn't be happening like that. So once again, it's just the whole thing is a product of timing too. It's a great time in American history, in world history, really, to be being able to go back and to grab a Native American heritage and bring it forward and celebrate it.
Well, like I said, my mother was, God bless her, my mother was a Sephard. She was French Sephard. And I know that when I was in France, they were concerned about my accomplishments, about my education. Oh, you're American Indian. They were more concerned with that. So this is a country that you can really take a troop to and really excel with.
Oh, I tell you something. We didn't get a chance to talk about this much, but here's just a fact of life. There is a fascination for the American Indian that goes tenfold once you go to Europe and other foreign countries. I think America is embracing our culture, but it goes off the chart once you get to Europe and places like Germany, and the Far East is a big supporter. When we first launched our first CD, it's called We the People. It went gold over in the Far East before it was practically even on the shelves here in the United States. And that continues kind of on to this day. There's just a fascination for the culture that goes almost beyond description. We'd love to get and tour some of these countries. Now, it's been 17 years, and we just haven't been able to put that together yet. But we'd love to take a performance like Brulé's out around the country at some point. But we just haven't managed it yet.
I think France would be, it doesn't matter any country, but, there's such a connection, or in my family anyway, with the French and the Indian sides of the family, and you find a lot of connection over there, and it's like they didn't care about anything else I had done. Oh, you're American Indian. Well, I'm only a quarter, Legally, I'm Oklahoma, but my family actually came out of North Carolina. They actually came out of there and moved westward. So legally we're Oklahoma, but you still have that heritage. And then, of course, everybody settles in Texas, but then that's, again, another story. But your odyssey, I think, is fantastic, just to pick up, take your family, and leave your life behind and move into, even though it's your culture, especially your children, is still going to be completely different and almost foreign. But like you say, it's almost genetic. You feel it, so you become a part of it.
You do, and I think the other little lesson that we've learned, I hope that there is that part of it is that I hope it's a demonstration to other people that you can. The world doesn't. It's a pretty tough world that we're in right now, and it doesn't. It's unforgiving, but if you just let go, like I said earlier, the toughest thing for us to do is to follow that particular path, because it fights conventional wisdom. It's too easy to say, hey, how am I going to make money if I do that? How am I going to live if I go do that? Well, how am I going to pay for a house? How am I going to buy groceries? But the fact is that, by going and doing it and just having that faith that it's going to happen, that's the key ingredient. That's the magic little component. It really is. We wouldn't be doing any of this, Dolly and Mike, had we not just said, all right, this is kind of scary, and it really is. We don't have a clue. We're just going to take a leap of faith. It feels right. And here we go. We're heading to a reservation. There's something to it.
Earlier about how you know if you're going in the right direction. And, I find myself in situations like that daily, where I guess some people would call it karma. But, am I making the right decisions? Because one thing you do really does affect another. And if you put out the positive energy, you're going to get positive results back. And, that's why when you mentioned a handshake, a handshake, spreads, just like telling somebody have a nice day, that they'll tell the next person have a nice day, or a smile, or if you're in traffic and somebody gives you a gesture and you just, wave at them instead of flipping them off back or something. It's basically what you were saying, and I've said this myself in a different way. But what you said, where that you have, I forget exactly how you said it, but you don't understand the. How did you put it, Paul?
Well, I just said none of us really have the ability to see how much of an impact that a simple kind gesture really how much effect it has on the world. It's almost like, can you imagine if we all had this big 10-foot ball, and it's a map. It's a copy of the globe, and if we did something good, and we help somebody, and if we could go to that big globe, and it's in this big dark room, and we could see these little white specks light up, and each little white speck was somebody that was affected in a positive way by something we just did, it would blow a person away, because you might initiate something, Mike, in your hometown that goes around the world, but you'll never know it. We just have to feel that it really is doing that. But I kept talking about this thing called the seventh direction from inside. But see, the old Lakota, they actually use that as a barometer. All seven directions are north, south, east, and west. Those are the first four, and we walk one of those directions every moment of every day. And the next two directions are above and below, so that's 5 and 6. We can look at those directions above and below as kind of being positive and negative or good and bad. That's where the spiritual part comes in. And we're tugged in one of those directions every moment of the day either. We have to make that decision to go one of those 6 directions. Then you bring in that 7th direction, which is from within yourself and your internal guidance mechanism. And when you combine that up with all of the other 6, that's how the old time Indians knew how to make decisions, and that's how they based all of their important decisions. They just followed that principle. It's like the 7 virtues. It's basic information that's universal laws that just don't lie.
Yeah, you're right. Because as you were explaining that, I just drew a little compass on my little notepad here. I just drew a little compass and put the high and the low and the center there, and it's kind of like, if I I talk a lot of junk sometimes on the internet, just kidding around, or I'll give you a good example because this one's kind of funny. I was at work the other day, and my partner complains a lot, and most people just ignore them. I usually do, if it's something that really needs fixing, we'll fix it. But I was joking the other day, and I fixed what he complains about, and he actually released me at night. He takes over my shift, and he got a haircut and just driving something different. I didn't realize the guy was standing there, and I said, I went in the garage and I was like looking for something, and the mechanic goes, "What are you looking for?" I said, "A bottle. If baby starts crying tonight, just hand him the bottle." And I didn't realize the guy was standing there.
That'll get you thinking next time what you say.
So now he doesn't complain anymore. He just pouts. Now you feel bad for him. And I'm like, maybe even though I was joking around, maybe I really did hurt his feelings, and I kind of felt bad about that. So it's like, when I do positive things, I feel like everything goes well. Everything else, it's things that are completely unrelated. Just the rest of my day will go well. But if I hurt somebody's feelings or say something negative or just little I don't want to say superstitions or innuendo or what do you call those, idiosyncrasies or anything like that. But it is kind of like that because I feel like everything I do might affect everything else, and I'm very conscious of that all the time.
That's true.
Well, the older we
get,
Yep.
Everybody does have some negatives, Paul, as you said. You try to dwell on the positives. For example, like I told Mike last time when I was working the lecture circuit for a private individual, and we were at a lecture, and somebody wanted to meet me, and I said, "Well, Mr. So-and-so is signing books over here." "No, they want to meet you." And I thought, well, they're probably from that area of the country where I'm living at the moment. I came over, and they said, "We heard you were Indian." I said, yes. "Well, you must not be all Indian." I said, "No, ma'am. If you'd like to know, I'm only a quarter." "Well, what's the rest of it?" I said, "What the hell is this, 20 questions?" I said, "I'm Jewish in India." And she said, "Oh, you must look like the Jewish side." And I just said, "Well, we wear high heels, makeup, short skirts, and suits, just like you white people." And I told Mike, my boss came up behind me and said, "We got to go," because he knew that's going to blow. And I looked back at it. That was a very negative comment I made. But sometimes you can't help yourself.
No, you can't. And it gets kind of personal after a while. But, this whole thing of our ethnicity is it deserves a lot of discussion. Everything I hear on talk radio and television these days is, we're all just Americans. Let's admit that. Well, we are, and I think that we need to embrace that thought process. But I don't think there's anything wrong with embracing our traditional past. And you just don't hear much about that. It's like it gets overshadowed these days. It gets lost in all the politics of the times, and so it's always it can always be a debate. It can always be up for a conversation that can have some rough edges to it, and it has to be. You just have to deal with it carefully. We've certainly had We've had confrontations, even when we did the Mount Rushmore concert, I'll be honest with you. Even though it was this large gesture of reconciliation, there were those out there, and I don't even know who they were, but there were those out there who didn't want that to happen. And the fact is that we had to there was Secret Service everywhere on the perimeters the whole time that Mount Rushmore was taking place. And, ready for something that if it was going to go south, we wanted to be prepared for it. And I've never seen anything like that before. I've never experienced that before. But that's part of the whole process, too. Whenever you start to make a little more of a bold stand, whatever it might be, you'll find that I guess one thing I found out, Mike, I'll direct this towards you because you might appreciate you too, but I found that when we're dead center, I mean, the old Lakota used to call it walking the red road. You maybe heard that expression. My translation of that is just it's when you're walking on your proper path and you're living right. And the old timers used to say that when the closer you got to being on center with that, the more difficult it was. Well, I believe that. As a matter of fact, I find that when we're actually dead center on the right path, that there's great opposition. And I just use that as a guiding mark anymore. When I find that if it's going too easy, I mean, if one day goes, the next day comes, and pretty soon 2 weeks pass, and you go, oh, it's just nothing happened. It was good. We had a great day. The crowds were good. The shows were good. But when you find that there's a pushing force, whether it comes from the left or right or from the front, that's when you're on track, because that's when you know that you're meeting, because there's a balance in the universe, positive and negative. And when the more you're on track with positive work, the more the negative is going to be hitting you. And it's something you can you can count on it, and that's the way it is. And so if it's too easy, you're off the mark a little bit. And once she starts to kind of come down, you go, well, here we are, we're back on track now.
Mike, can you relate to that? You said you'd been thrown off more sites than most of us have ever joined, so that shows you're on the right track.
There you go, absolutely. You can appreciate that now.
MJH. Yeah, I really have been banned from more sites than most people have ever been on. But just from speaking the truth, really. When actually, I don't want to get into like specific things, but it's just like politics and stuff like that. And I mean, I don't really. It's just when people are incorrect about what they're saying, I feel the need to correct them. I mean, like you're right. You're welcome to have your opinion, whatever it is. But when I know you got the facts wrong, just do your research before you speak. That's all. And
you have to do that, Mike. Yeah. You have to. One of the biggest problems out there in the world of communication these days is disinformation. It's so damaging. And with such a large communication network now in the world, and anybody can kind of say whatever they want to, somebody has to hold them to check. Because, I mean, we run into this all the time. Somebody can just say, Brulé, those guys don't know what they're doing. And it's just somebody saying something. But pretty soon, 10,000 people have heard that. And it's not the right information. But it's affected a bunch of other people. You can't stop it. I'm telling you, this disinformation is a terrible thing in the world right now. It's always been there. I mean, it's because we have mass communication on unprecedented level. You really got to watch it. Yeah. So you hold them, Mike. You tell them. I mean, they got to be accurate. They got to be right with what they're saying.
And sometimes you have a program of it. You have someone that actually orchestrates a program of disinformation, knowing that it will have that effect.
Absolutely, it's a weapon. It really is. Yeah. It's a
fantastic weapon. Well, Mike has been doing this for a long time, producing different. What is it exactly, Mike?
Well, I do web design, and I've been involved with web broadcasting, internet broadcasting for about 8 years. And the past couple of years, I've been doing Blog Talk Radio on and off, and of course I do YouTube and stuff like that as well. But I mostly found myself doing web design and development. But when I do that, I'm actually doing programming and stuff like that. So I'm not out creating content and socializing and doing interviews and all that great stuff that people. When I'm doing the web development, I'm behind the scenes. When I'm doing this, I'm coming out there where people can hear me and I'm meeting people, and that's what I really enjoy doing. But I can't do that without a website.
That's right. Well, you have two sides to what you do, just like any other artist. You have to create things first of all, so that you can do your thing. In your case, it's the site. Yeah, and then you want to be able to. Then you want to express yourself. And that's basically the two sides to almost every artist. Every artist has to. You have to. You can't really express it. You can't just say, "Hey, here I am. I'm an artist." Well, what you think? Well, I don't do. I'm just going to sit here. I'm not a painter. I'm not a drawer. I don't sing. I don't. You have to be able to create something, and and then you have to be able to communicate. And usually the two kind of work together. But that's absolutely the two sides that we always struggle with. I'm fascinated by communications and radio programs on the internet. I just think it's ultra cool, and I just appreciate what you guys are doing. But Mike, how did you get the Notorious tag on your titles?
Yeah, I don't know that either. Let's find out.
Okay, I'll try to make the story as short as possible. When I first, I got a Sprint phone back in 2001. And it had the wireless web on it. And I really didn't think it was useful for anything until I was traveling. I was sitting around bored in a hotel one night, and I was looking for bands I like. And one of the bands was Social Distortion that I searched for. And something came up, and it was like, join this room. So, or group or whatever. So I joined it. So, I didn't even know what it was, really. Next thing I know, I get a text message that says, check this voicemail, but it wasn't the voicemail on my phone. It was this service called upoc.com. And I check it, and it's like, press 1 to hear the message, and this is chick who, she was really cute, I got to know who she was later and everything. And she was from California, and she goes, "You're not supposed to be here." And I was like, well, it's like press 2 to answer the message, so I pressed 2. I was like, what are you talking about? And she goes, well... She goes, well, I'm really in love with Mike Ness, the lead singer of Social Distortion, and I just created this room on upoc.com so that nobody else would be able to make it up and take it. And I was like, oh, okay, I understand that. And she was just a little groupie of his, And she's like, but I'll invite you to some other chat rooms where, people actually talk, and you can text, and it goes to, you form groups. And you send a text message, and it goes to the whole group, or you can leave a voice message, and it goes to the whole group. And it was really cool. So she invites me to a couple of these groups, and I just go on there, and I'm like, hey, what's up, everybody? This is, now, I couldn't think of a name to use for my screen name, so I just used my initials. And I get joked for that. Ha, you used your initials. And I was thinking, that's funny, but you watch this be one of the most famous screen names ever made, Yeah. So I got to, girls are answering me back on these voice messages, oh, hey, you got a nice voice, whatever, And I was like, oh, I was loving this, I was getting off work every day, going and calling UPOC, So I knew this one girl who went by Pixie. I met some other people through her. Well, as it turned out, there was this group of bullies on this upoc.com that would go into groups, and if they didn't like somebody, they'd tell the founder of the group that they had to boot them, or they would go in there and leave like 500 voice messages and stuff, and just like flood the room and make everybody else leave and stuff like that. And they told her that she had to boot somebody, some guy she was talking to before, and then one thing led to another. I made the comment, oh, I'm not going to let them get away with that, And then I got in the middle of it. So they started harassing me. And I was like, okay, well, when you harass me, that gives me the license to harass you. So all these little hacking tricks that they knew, I learned. And so I hacked them back, and we all got banned from this site. Every single one of us, no matter which side we were on. So when they banned the name, like my original screen name was MJH, I had to keep up making new screen names to get back into the site. And, I'd make up some people couldn't recognize because I knew they'd want to get, whacked the next day and stuff like that. And, finally I made up the one called the Notorious MJH, and that one didn't get banned. So, that's where I got my start, was at upoc.com, and that's the Notorious MJH story.
Well, Mike, I think it's done a good job for you because you are really wonderful at creating these programs and these websites and these broadcasts, because without your creating them, this couldn't be happening.
Well, Dolly, I have to thank for a lot of this with scheduling the guests, or actually booking the guests, and finding people who would like to interact, and just see that's what it's all about. I mean, this isn't a money making thing here. I mean, this is about a channel for people to come on and talk, and even with Gazelle O'Mead, she's all over Fox News and everything. But I've never seen I haven't seen a video yet where she was just able to tell, talk about the topics she wanted to talk about uninterrupted and give her real viewpoints. It's like, you see her on the YouTube, a Fox News clip, and it's Bill O'Reilly, giving her 30 seconds to answer her question. She does a very good job, but she can't really get into her opinion. They don't give her the time.
Well, she's my adopted goddaughter. I love her.
Yeah, she's awesome. And she, with this, she had the opportunity to, take a whole hour live, and then, even after the hour show, we still do the podcast. And, she just, had the opportunity to really explain it. And there were questions I had, not just for her, but, with this Muslim thing and all that stuff. And, I actually found out that the Muslims aren't really coming to get us. It's just certain ones. And they're, they call them infidel. They're outcasts from the actual Islamic religion. They're considered infidel. The people who blew up the buildings from 9/11 and stuff. They don't approve of that.
Well, you asked some really pertinent questions, Mike. You did a wonderful job with that. And without your creating the channel, we wouldn't be here. So that credit has to be given.
Absolutely. I'd like to just chime in and say thank you very much from all of us too, because and Dolly, thank you for, if you're part of the process for actually finding guests and things. We do appreciate. I'm always to this day, I'm always honored when we get a call and said somebody would like to speak to you. Would you take time for a few words? And absolutely, because it's just I don't know. I've always considered it an honor if somebody takes the time to find you and to research you and to set it up for you to share a little bit about your life's journey, and it means a lot to be able to share that. So it doesn't happen every day. I mean, over the course of 17 years, something like this is still kind of rare, and even with all that we've done. So we just really appreciate it. Like I said at the top of the interview, I just said I wanted to kind of speak on behalf of all of us, because we told everybody there was a little interview going on tonight, all 16 people, and they all went, cool. So, from all of us, just a word of thanks and gratitude.
All 16 people are a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All 16 people are a part of it, and every tribe has something to offer. And I just like to see, of course, my ethnicity, I suppose, I just like to see all tribes to bring their traditions out, present their culture, and you've opened the door for every tribe, not just for your own, but for every tribe, to be able to come out and bring their traditions out and make it a major part of American culture, yet still retaining their own traditions. I don't care what tribe it is. If I find someone, I want to make sure that they have an opportunity to, after they create, to be able to express that to someone else. And Mike is just, everything's meant to be, I think, and he's got the channel. And I think Blog Talk Radio is a thing of the future. I really do. I think it's going to go places.
I do too, and I wish you guys the best of luck and the highest of success in your endeavors. And we were proud to be part of the journey there for you guys. So once again, thanks for including us.
And Mike, what do you think now of American Indian culture?
What do I think?
Yeah,
I think American Indian culture is awesome. Well, you see, all right, I have a little something kind of in common with Paul. It's not the exact same story. But, you see, my real father, my biological father, is Cherokee Indian. But I never knew my biological Yeah, but I never knew my biological father. When I was a little kid, they got divorced. And when I was 7, my mother remarried, and, I had an adoptive dad, a stepfather, but, he actually legally adopted me.
Commonality with Paul. Commonality with Paul.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not the exact same story, but it's kind of similar. And, so I never knew my real father, but, I know things like like I'm a very spiritual person, and if you put me in the woods, I can find my way around without. People are like, how do you know how to do that? I'm like, I don't know. It's common sense to me. So I was like just kind of born knowing things that I've never been taught, and so I can relate to Paul's story. So I was listening to him. Yeah, I was quiet because I didn't want to interrupt, but I'm also listening to the story, going, wow, that's kind of similar.
Yeah. Well, there's that genetic link. It's part of all of us. I mean, it's just built into our makeup, and I think that one of the little known secrets, probably, if somebody could ever really discover it, I don't know if it ever will be, but there's probably more of us Americans that have Native American descent in their family tree than we'll ever really ever know.
I'm sure there are.
It's just it probably would just boggle our minds. But the fact is that it's just a great time that we're able to recognize that and kind of embrace it, once again, and to include it in part of American history. It's really a great time, for the American Indian culture. It is, and I'm one of the few people that will say, we can go back 500 years. This is probably the best of times right now, even though we still have troubles around. But we just need some leaders to pop up. We need to have a couple of good, strong leaders come out of Native America, and I always keep my eye open. And there's some out there. But I'd like to plant one idea with the two of you, and maybe we'll breathe some life into it. But one of the things that I would really, if I had a dream list of things that could happen, is one of them that I always kind of think about is that, and we have President Obama there now for better for worse, and I'm not going to say where I fall on that, but he's there.
Yeah, I try to steer away from that myself tonight.
And he does have some. He's kind of like us. He's in an unusual position. And I've always wanted to be able to, I don't know if I get the chance to, but I'd like to just challenge President Obama to be one of the first of the American presidents to initiate a National Day of Reconciliation. I think it would reverberate around the world. They did it down in Australia a few years back, and it was just unbelievable. The Aborigines,
awesome idea.
Yeah, the Aborigines finally had their time to say that we were recognized and acknowledged and thank you. And it doesn't mean that anything has to change. It's really strictly symbolic. But we haven't had one American president yet that even would issue that on a symbolic gesture. And I think the time is here. So,
I can't go through Obama.
I can tell you how we can get the ball rolling on that.
I'm on the other side of the coin, but I do have some influence on the other side that can influence that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm only saying it just to kind of initiate it. There's three of us here, but we all three of us probably reach hundreds of thousands of people, and we'll see what happens with it.
I think my phone's going to die in a little bit, guys.
Okay.
I'm gone, you'll know my battery's going to die on my phone in a little bit. But I do have some contacts on the other side of the fence that have enough authority to be able to go in and press for something like this, so I'll start working on it.
Hey, Dolly, by the way, I was incorrect that one time when I said you can't call back after it's not live anymore. You can.
Okay, I might call in on my cell then, because the landline is starting to...
So try to call in on your cell before you hang up with this phone, just to make sure, because I'm not entirely positive, but I'm pretty sure you can.
What's that number again? 1718?
It's 718.
Okay.
506 1814.
Okay, and wait a minute, 1814. And then if we find out if we can get that overseas number, because my friend Avi Lipkin is running, he's going to be running for the Knesset. He's in Israel right now. And if we can get that 800 number coming in here, we can get in there. Now let me see if
there is an 800 number you can get with Blog Talk Radio, but it goes through them. Like I can't. It's not like I have phone lines that are hooked straight up to Blog Talk Radio from a studio or something.
I have to have a PIN to enter. Do you PIN for me to enter on my cell?
Oh, I gave you the host number. I'm sorry. Hang up and call this number.
Okay. What's the other one?
718.
1718.
506.
506.
1815.
1815.
I should have said something. That's the number I saw. Yep.
Okay, now let me see. Options, call. let's see what's happening. Yeah, I think that day of reconciliation, I know that side of the fence isn't going to listen to me, but the other side will. No show scheduled in the next 24 hours. Can you hear me?
No, you're not coming. You're not showing up.
Okay.
I guess you can't call in. That's what I thought at first you couldn't. But hey, look, how to get the ball rolling on that? And I got this idea from our friend Gazelle there, Dolly. You notice how she said when she has an issue with somebody, she drops them a note. Right? What she meant was write them a letter. And I've also heard politicians say, especially old-timer politicians, that emails are fine, but if you write them a letter, it makes a much more of a statement. It's much more significant.
Yes, it definitely does. They will look at their email.
If each of the three of us wrote a letter to President Obama at the White House, and said, let's would you consider having a day reconciliation? If enough people did that, he would probably do it. And President Obama, really, I mean, you can say what you want about him, but he really is the type of guy who would take up on an issue like that.
I don't know if he would listen to me, but if I wrote to John Boehner or give Newt Gingrich or Karl Rove or somebody like that, maybe. But
he might listen to you if you left out all the other crap you say about him. Don't put that in the letter, Dolly. Just, stick to topic.
Hey, I've been riding that fence for a long time. That's why they can't fool me. I worked that lecture circuit for 15 years, and let me tell you, I've been there, done that. I know what they're doing. I've shoveled it myself. So, and I'm glad I did that. So I think I regret some of the things. I think we maybe did some damage, but I've been, as my daughter said once, my mother lived, she's so far left, she's ready to fall off. Well, I came back to my roots. My daddy was an old Texas yellow dog Republican, which means I'll vote for a yellow dog before I'll vote for a Democrat. I came back to my roots, and I've been on the other side, so I know what they're doing.
Well,
but I definitely will work for it.
I will too. I'm going to leave my email with you. It's just it's Brule, BRULE 55 at gmail.com.
Is that the same one as Kathy's?
Yep, it is.
Okay.
And here's my deal. I'm going to write a letter. I'm just telling you all that I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'll research it out, find a place to send it where I can make the most impact. I'll send it to you guys. And maybe we'll just be three of us. Maybe it'll be two or one of us. But I'm going to go ahead and do it and see what happens. And someday I can say that we did it.
Well, I'll do it too. And if they don't come and cart me off and throw me in the Hooskow, I'm
just saying that 3 letters, would get noticed if we actually wrote them on paper and then sent it to the U.S. Postal Service. They would get read, and with 3 letters, it would get noticed. With 300 letters, because if we promote this online and on Blog Talk Radio, and you post it on your website, Paul, and I'll post it on mine. 300 letters, and one letter means more than 150, 2,000 emails.
It does. I haven't done this before, so I haven't mentioned this to anybody else on the public forum. You guys are unique in the fact that I've mentioned this idea to you, and I just have a feeling about it. So let's just see where it goes. I think it'll be kind of fun. And what do we got to lose? It's a noble gesture and a worthy idea.
If this administration doesn't do it, believe me, the next one will.
I'm with you. Dolly, I'm with you.
I mean, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And Micah had no idea that you were Cherokee also. It's just very interesting.
Well, I've mentioned that I was raised Roman Catholic and Italian. I've mentioned that on the show before. And that's basically my culture. But I'm only a quarter Italian by blood. I'm half American Indian by blood.
You're more than I am. My daddy was half. I'm a quarter.
And my adoptive parents raised me as a Catholic, so I was an altar boy and church organist through the whole time, Mike. So there you go. We got
that's very interesting. My mother was a Sephardic Jew, and my daddy, his father, was a Ashkenazim. He was half German Jew and half Cherokee. So we all have, even though Paul, you are 100, even though you're a full blood like my girlfriend Geraldine, there's still a mixed culture there.
It is absolutely, and I embrace that.
Yeah, I embrace it too. I love my ethnicity, and I feel very blessed to be what I am.
I wouldn't.
And I feel blessed to meet the people that I've met, and now this channel, this Blog Talk Radio, but again, Mike, unless you can do it, how to do it, so somebody has to be able to have the ability to create this. And you have, and that's proved. Then that's given us the venue to bring other people on here. And then if we can find out about that 800 number, we can get Avi in from Real. That'll be the other side of the coin.
The 800 numbers. We'll find a way to do that. We'll find a way. You know, you don't have to patch your landline through or something like that. We'll figure out something with that.
I haven't called him yet because I want to wait till I know, because he will say, "Oh, tell me what to do." So I'll have to have the information before I call.
Right. So let me check on that tomorrow, and because I looked at what they got on the web, and it doesn't specify whether those are international or not. It's an 800 number, but I'm not sure if it's good internationally. And yes, as far as the channel. Yeah, I mean, I know what I'm doing on the technical end, but I mean, this show would be nothing without the guest and without the co-host, and so yeah, you can go back in the archives and hear shows where it's just me, and they're actually pretty lame, So, so it's actually it's great to have you as a co-host, Dolly, and having you, Paul, and all the other guests that Dolly's lined up for the show. That's what's making this show take off.
And
so,
Paul, if you have
we're all helping each other out.
Paul, if you have other groups or other issues that you want to promote, just get a hold of one of us and, let us know. And, I'm sure there will be a way to do that.
I'll do that. You guys are a great team, and you have a great chemistry, and I applaud you for that.
Well, we thought we'd see if we did before we did Cass. Someone we met, he's had Texan Hispanic that's running for the Senate, conservative Republican. So we decided, Mike said, let's go ahead and give it 15 minutes or so, do a pre-show to see if there's any chemistry to see. And it worked, So then I asked to see if we were on for Wednesday night. He's running for the Senate from Texas, and I think he's a good person. And, I hope that goes for him.
You bet. Well, guys, listen, I'm going to sign off. I'll stay in contact with you on Facebook, and I'll dial into your Blog Talk Radio, and stay in contact with me by email, and let's see what happens, guys.
Yeah, my phone's going to die, so I'm going to have to.
Yep, I hear it going.
Okay, talk to y'all later. Okay,
all
bye-bye.
Right,
Dolly,
thank you. Dolly, y'all have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, you guys. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Good to see you. Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, everybody, that was the show for tonight. And this is MJH. Peace, God bless. And I'm out of here. Later.